Hello. Right, this is our Inspiring the Next CMO podcast series for Behind the Fluff podcast from the International Bunch. It's specifically for those in marketing, those interested in marketing, those in academic publishing, scholarly comms and libraries. Who are we going to be talking with today? Zoe Loveland. Zoe is a senior director in marketing, and Zoe talks with us about audiobooks and exploding kittens. Yes, you did just hear that right, exploding kittens. The importance of surrounding yourself with different generations for inspiration, forging a path in publishing with a working class background, mentoring in third world countries, fake it till you make it, balancing family life and career. Now, some of you may know that several years ago, Zoe was lucky enough to manage me, and we went through some career developing times together, learning how to quickly and easily adapt to very changing times. So why don't we just jump straight in? Let's go. All right, welcome everybody to our Behind the Fluff Inspiring the Next CMO podcast series. Now you can find lots of great resources to really raise your game on our website, which is www.internationalbunch.com/be inspired. I am delighted today to have Zoe Loveland with me. Now Zoe is a senior director. Nearly gave you a demotion then, Zoe. So Zoe is a senior director of regional marketing, EMEA, in the industry. And in fact, Zoe and I used to work together some 11 years ago, and Zoe was my boss. We had some fun times and we had some challenging times. But one thing I can say about Zoe is I've always admired Zoe, and Zoe has always been an excellent people manager and very, very supportive. So hello, Zoe.
Hello, Lou. Thank you so much for asking me to do this. This is, I loved getting the questions and having a think about, some of the topics that you just don't spend a lot of time thinking about every day. So it's great. Thank you.
My pleasure. Well, I had to have you involved in this. So now before we get started, I have one question for you. Something we ask everyone to do before we get started with our series of questions is we have a campaign that we do where we send out a word of the day. So it's #IntBunch word of the day. And we want to know, what's your favorite word and what does it mean?
So my favourite word is actually one that you've already had on your International Bunch word of the day. But a couple of months ago, because I checked it out when I was thinking about this, and the word is the word for the wonderful smell after it's been raining.
Ooh, I missed that word.
That word is petrichor.
Ooh.
So, when you go out after, it's been like, especially in the summer when it's been really hot and there's been like, it's been really dry for days, and then you have a lovely rain shower and there's that beautiful kind of earthy smell and everything smells like it's coming back to life. That word is petrichor to describe that. And it's apparently, I found out, it's a Greek word from petri, which means rock, and ichor, which was the blood of the blood that through the veins of the Greek gods.
Wow.
So, but it's just like, it's lovely that there's a word to describe that. Just that delicious smell.
Yasmin does an amazing job of finding some really random words. Wow. And I wish some of them we use more in our vocabulary. That is a brilliant word. And when you said that, literally I could smell that smell.
That gorgeous smell. Or when you're on holiday in a really hot place and there's like a thunderstorm or something, I miss that. But that beautiful smell you get.
Oh, the good old days when we could go on holiday.
To genuinely warm places. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm always looking for an opportunity to use petrichor in a sentence. It doesn't come up very often. So thank you for allowing me to use that word.
Well, it's there to be used. I think that actually I should set you a little challenge in the next meeting that you have, you should stick it in.
Yeah, it's quite challenging in marketing to find the word petrichor in academic marketing, but I'll try.
Yeah, just throw it in.
Yeah.
So, what is the best thing that you have discovered in the last year?
So I think one of the best things that I've discovered in the last year is the Audible app.
Right there with you on that one.
Yeah, like I was before the lockdown, I'd got really into listening to podcasts going to and from work. And we're going to talk about podcasts, I think, a bit later. But I really just I was looking for something where if I'm feeling really tired and I don't want to look at stuff, because we're all looking at screens all day, every day now with very little break.
Yeah.
Just something a little bit longer than the kind of 1 hour podcast. And I have listened to so many books on Audible, and it's such an amazing immersive experience. I think I've got more out of books that I've listened to and a deeper understanding of them probably than when I'm just doing normal reading. Yeah, and I've absolutely loved it. It's the contribution of the people who read the books, who I've read books narrated by Tom Hanks and other people, and it just, I've loved it. It's been really great. The other thing I've really enjoyed, totally irrelevant, is discovering the card game Exploding Kittens.
Ooh,
it's my family favourite. It's a card game where you basically use tactics to try and get your whoever's playing with you to pick up the exploding kitten card. And we've spent hours as a family, tricking each other, being sneaky. So I highly recommend Exploding Kittens, the card game.
Oh my God, I'm definitely going to look that up. That sounds hilarious. I completely agree with you about Audible, though. I also have been listening to it a lot in the last year, and I go running and listen to it because I'm terrible at reading. And I know you've always been really good at reading from when we worked together. And I needed something to distract me, and it's amazing. And also listening to podcasts. I mean, I find I'm running along trying to breathe, but then I'm chuckling to myself, and no one's got any idea what I'm listening to. But brilliant. I'm just still laughing in my head about Exploding Kitten card game. So who inspires you?
Gosh, this is a really, really tricky one, because I don't think there's any one person or any one level at which I'm inspired. Sure, I'm quite often inspired by famous people like Jacinda Ardern, who's running a country, or Michelle Obama, who's who I absolutely loved her autobiography and was really inspired by both her and Jacinda Ardern's ability to be in these extreme positions of leadership that they'd never seen themselves in, but still be themselves, and still be true to their values, and not listen to the critics who wanted them to behave in different ways. So those kinds of people do really inspire me. But I'm also really inspired just on a day-to-day basis by a lot of the people that I work with, particularly my team at the moment. I work with a lot of women who are slightly younger generation than me, and I'm really inspired by their confidence, their dedication to continuous learning, their resolve and strong sense of self and direction that I don't feel like I had, particularly at their age, and at where they are in their roles. So, I take a lot of inspiration from working with them as well. And being able to help them is one of the most rewarding things I think that I get to do.
Yeah. I mean, I've worked with your team through a work capacity in terms of from us to you, because you're one of our clients. And I have to say that I've always been impressed with those of your team that I've worked with. They really are rising stars. And actually, I think that they get involved with some really interesting projects. But when you speak to them, from my perspective as you've been the client and me as on the agency side, I'm just really impressed with the caliber of your team and what they're actually doing and their feedback and how they want things to be done. And so I think they're really fab too. And I don't just say that because you're my client.
Yes. You have to say that. And I have to say that. No, I don't have to say that because I'm their manager. But actually, exactly. I do find it's keeping me on my toes.
Yeah.
It's keeping me on my toes. They have knowledge because they've come up through marketing in a different way to me. And I know we'll probably talk about this as well. But they have knowledge and experience that I don't have. And they push me to be better all the time and to learn more because, my goal is to make them successful. My success is them being successful. And I really have to, I listen to them a lot, and I learn such a huge amount from working with them.
No, that's really lovely. And I think that when they hear this, they'll really appreciate that as well. So when you were young, what did you want to be?
Oh, it's such a boring cliche for someone working in the publishing industry.
What, a marketer?
No, I didn't want to do marketing. I didn't even know what that was. But I wanted to do something that was oriented in writing and creativity, of course. Like, when I was really young, I wanted to be an author. I've obviously, I've always loved books. I've always loved reading. At the time when I was young, before I went to university, I really thought that meant that I'd want to be like a journalist, because journalists are cool and they get to do lots of writing. And it wasn't until I got to university and I joined the student newspaper that, like, within about 3 assignments on the student newspaper, I was like, this really isn't for me. I don't like this at all. But how can I still be involved in the world of the written word and creativity and telling stories? So, and I think that's how I really ended up in marketing, because I love that telling stories piece. So I also really wanted to be, this is going to tell my age now, there used to be a programme on BBC One called the Holiday Programme. And I really wanted to be a presenter on the holiday programme, because they travelled around to all these exotic resorts and things to encourage people to take holidays abroad. So I really wanted to do that as well. But I love travel too. So I think that's influenced me, even though I didn't end up a TV presenter on holiday programmes.
Listen, you could start your own vlog. The world is your oyster now.
Well, at the moment, it's a very small portion of Cambridgeshire is my oyster, but not sure how much of an audience that would get.
Mind you, I don't know if you can travel further than we can. In Wales, we can only travel 5 miles. That's quite restrictive.
Yeah, it's pretty similar here.
Yeah. So if you were to have dinner tonight with anybody, alive or dead, anybody in the world, who would it be?
So first of all, it would probably be my mum, because I really miss seeing my mum. And so that would be my number one. But if she wasn't available, I would probably ask the writer and Times columnist Caitlin Moran to join me. Yes. Because I've read all her books. I read her column in the Saturday Times every week. We're the same age, roughly. And she's so smart and so funny, and she's so incisive with her observations. I think we'd just have a real laugh over dinner. So I like to think she likes me and we'd get along.
She's funny. She is really funny. I'm listening to her latest book on Audible at the moment. And I listen to her when I run. And I have to say, when I listened to her book just previous from 2012, I was thinking some of the things she was saying, I was thinking, not really quite for me. Some things I found really funny. Some things I was thinking, And now listening to her, what is it, like nearly 10 years on? Yep. And with her latest book and how she's also grown. Yeah, she's grown, she's adapted. And I'm like, now we're on the same. I don't know if it was me reading as a 40-something-year-old, the old version and thinking, but now reading going, yes.
So I listened to that towards the end of last year, and it was one of those, like you said, about laughing as you're like going for a run or a walk, like literally walking the dog and thinking, if people could hear this, like I needed to check my headphones really on, like I'm laughing my head off, but I'm thinking, oh my God, I do not want my children to hear this stuff.
Yeah, she does swear. We do have to warn people. She does swear a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. But, as a person who's also going into parenting teenagers now, I find her kind of thoughts on it really helpful.
And I remember when your daughter was just like a year old, you know. I remember, wow.
Sorry, Lou, she's 14 now.
Oh, I can't believe it.
Yeah, neither can I. I don't look old enough.
Amazing. Oh, gosh, time does fly, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So tell me about your career and how you got to where you are today.
So I already said a little bit about it, going to university, thinking I wanted to be a journalist, doing an English and American literature degree because love reading, love books, love, talking to people about books and reading. And so, and when I realised it wasn't for me, journalism, I, went to the careers advisors at university, and, there were two things that I, started investigating more. One was librarianship, and the other was a career in publishing. So And I thought at the time that that where I'd be most happy would be in like commercial fiction publishing industry. And it was my initial goal was to start working there. I left university, and at the time in the mid-90s, we were still in a bit of a recession and it was really hard to get jobs. So I actually ended up working in a Waterstones bookshop in central London. Absolutely loved it, loved being a bookseller. But the whole reason for working there was to meet all the publishers' agents who would come and sell us stuff, because you'd run your own section and you'd be the buyer for your section. And for them to get to know me, and hopefully if there were openings at publishers to recommend me for a job. And that's what ended up happening. I ended up getting my first break in publishing as a publicity and marketing assistant at Castle & Co., working on their non-fiction list, marketing books about making dolls' houses and gardening books with Alan Titchmarsh. And so did that for a couple of years, and then moved into fiction publishing. I was hired as creative marketing assistant for Hodder headline publishers, and I was doing fiction marketing. I very quickly realised, though, like after about being in that world just a few years, that it probably wasn't right for me, because as much as I love books and I love reading, I didn't really fit into the mold of the people who worked in that environment. It was all very public school oriented at the time. I'm sure it's changed since then, but late 90s. And I came from a very working class background and was struggling to live in London on the dreadful salaries that you get paid in commercial publishing. And I believe it's got even worse since then, because I hear a lot about, the exploitation of work experience students and things like that. And, it wasn't, it was a tough market to break into, but I realised it wasn't for me. And I actually ended up transitioning into working in legal and regulatory publishing for Butterworth's Tolley, who are part of the Reed Elsevier empire.
Oh, yes.
And I really enjoyed that. That was where I really learned a lot more of the nuts and bolts of marketing. Up until then, marketing had been very much about writing creative copy to go on adverts, to go on billboards, to write press releases and things. And then when I got to legal and regulatory publishing, that's where I learned direct mail strategies, lead generation, getting people to adopt books as part of their companies, their law companies, library. And it was a real education in, okay, marketing is more than fluff, behind the fluff.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And from there, I went to work for Elsevier because it was part of the same group, and I joined their health sciences division. That was when I got my first break as a marketing manager. I think one of the things I learned through my career is, certainly in my early days, it was necessary to move around a bit to get promotions. Like, it's very hard in marketing. They're quite flat structures. They've always been, to get to the next level. So I got my first role at Elsevier as a marketing manager, managing their health sciences list. Really, really enjoyed that role, but wanted to move out of London. Started looking around, and that's how I found ProQuest, where I've been for 15 years since. They're based in Cambridge, for those people who don't know. And it was an area of publishing that I didn't even know existed when I got the job. Like, I had no idea. But it was a real kind of opportunity for me to marry my early interest in librarianship with the publishing industry, with academic publishing. And what I really like about, this area is that sense of there's meaning to what you do. You're helping researchers. There's a real kind of mission around enabling those researchers and research discoveries to happen, and hopefully opportunities for people to fulfill their own academic and career opportunities by doing this study. By the way, I hope you can't hear my dog snoring.
No, I can't. But as we said just before we started this, we both have dogs in the room, and mine jumped off the sofa, wandered over in front, knocked my light, wandered over in front. I was thinking, shut up.
Mine's snoring really loudly. She's a tiny dog, but she snores.
She's content, isn't she? Bless her. Yeah, she's content. Yeah. So if anyone hears any kind of, we're guessing that's your dog.
So that's how I ended up at ProQuest, where I've been for 15 years and worked in various different roles, starting out in product marketing, as you know, because we worked together in product marketing. That was called strategic marketing at the time. And then from there, I moved into a new role they created called segment planning. And that's when I got my first break as a director. And that was a role that ProQuest created around kind of looking at market trends and market sizing and market opportunity for like what direction, it was much more of a strategy role than a marketing role.
Yeah.
Learned a huge amount doing that around strategy and again storytelling and being able to communicate to C-suite about what they should do and be able to convince them of your arguments. And then for the last 3-4 years nearly, I've been leading the EMEA regional marketing organization for the company, so combining regional marketing, field marketing tactics, and also market development, kind of, which was how segment planning really evolved into.
Yeah, I think that strategic marketing team that we were in, for me, was an absolute life changer in my career. Yeah. And it was probably, I would say, apart from what I do now, but from a client side, it was one of the most valuable experiences I've ever had and completely changed me as a person. And it really was an incredible team. Yeah. And I've never experienced anything like it since. Yeah. And I don't know if I ever will again, but there's so many things I've taken from that time that I now very much implement in what I do moving forward. It was just such a good team.
I think you're right. I think that was such a revelation and a foundational role for me because it combined strategy and planning with field marketing tactics. And in my previous roles, it'd been very tactical, just like, sending out campaigns, trying to get leads back in, trying to, Elsevier, trying to get people to adopt our nursing textbooks. But this role really did say, right, okay, you've got this region, you've got this product set you're responsible for, like, what's your plan? And that really has made a huge difference, that close engagement with working with product teams, with working with sales organizations and trying to make both pieces successful, both strategically and on tactics to drive engagement. It's really helped me through, I go back to those foundations repeatedly when I'm
absolutely
things and still use a lot of those things that we learned.
It was a game changer, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It really was.
Yeah.
So what have you been most proud of in your career?
So I think the thing that I've been most proud of has been the opportunities, both formally and informally, I've had to do mentoring and coaching. Yeah. That's one of the things that I most enjoy, particularly as I've had more opportunity to do it more formally as a team leader, but also all the informal opportunities I've been given since the early days of my career, really. Since basically when I got a marketing exec role at Butterworths Tolley, and, I volunteered to be the person who supported the work experience students when they came in. And I used that more than just like task-based, but quickly saw an opportunity to kind of coach these people, build their confidence, help them identify what they wanted to do next in their career and help them get the most out of the experiences they were having. And since then, ProQuest has a mentoring scheme. I've been a mentee in it and I've been a mentor on it. I've done some mentoring for some women at work charities where they work with people in the third world, women who are in third world countries around, who are starting their own businesses and things, totally removed from my own experience, but really people who just need someone to listen to them and believe in them. And it's just amazing how just being in someone's corner and telling them you think they're doing great and helping them unblock whatever problem there is, and I don't unblock it for them. I don't tell them what to do, but helping them think through things in ways that they've not thought through before to unblock something and come to a bit of a self-revelation sometimes. And sometimes it's very small and sometimes it's very transformative, that these people have, gone on to have success in different areas. And like not always in marketing. One of the people I mentored went on to start her own company. Another person that I was lucky enough to mentor is now a published author, you know, and then other people have been just people, you know, within marketing roles or sometimes, you know, and that's been, and I think that, you know, that's one of the most rewarding things to get involved in is, you know, helping people learn from your experiences, but also lifting up other people and, you know, helping build their confidence and self-belief.
Yeah, love that. And I love that phrase, lifting up other people. I do mentoring stuff too, and it does make you feel like you're making real difference for someone. You know, if there's something that you've learned along the way that you can pass on, it's incredible. And now that you say that, I mean, that sounds absolutely brilliant. Are there any of the charities that you want to name to recommend so that people can get in touch? Because I tend to find that it's harder for there to be mentors. There are generally usually a lot of mentees looking for.
Yeah. This is a problem. So let me. I'll send you the links afterwards to put it in the chat. There's a Dr. Suzanne Collins who does a lot of this and puts people in touch with mentors and mentees.
Right.
So yeah, and so
we'll include that in our description. That'd be perfect. Yeah, thanks so much. That'd be fab. So, what have you found the most challenging in your career? Working, being my boss.
Well, no, not quite. Like, but you know, being your boss wasn't the most challenging experience.
Damn it!
You tried. But yeah. So I mean, some of the most challenging experiences, like, you know, we talked earlier, like I really, you know, I get inspired by the people I work with. You know, I like them to challenge me. Like, you challenge me just as much as anybody, and that makes you better, and it makes me better being challenged in those things I do. Just because I'm the leader of a team, I don't have all the answers. Like, I'm perfectly prepared to be vulnerable about that kind of stuff, and like have other people's. I want to take other people's ideas. I don't want to run with mine, because quite often mine are quite rubbish. But if I can help someone else run with theirs, that's good. But no, the most challenging thing, and I don't know, you might be able to relate to this, but it's for me, it's been navigating a path as somebody who's a career oriented woman and also a mother of 2 children who I adore, obviously. But when I had Juliet 14 years ago, I didn't have any role models or anyone in my peer group who was planning to do the same thing as me and go back to work full time and try and have a career. Like, everybody that I met in my parenting groups and in my social circles, you know, they were planning to go back to work part-time and take a back seat on their careers for the next 10 to 15 years until, you know, at least until their children got to secondary school. And I wasn't planning to do that. And I didn't have anyone to talk to or relate to about what I was going through. My mum had given up work, you know, in the 70s. She worked in publishing. She gave up work as soon as she had me and my brother. And then until we were teenagers, she did invoicing for my dad's company. You know, so I didn't have anyone. And and it's just trying to find my own path for what's going to work for me and be successful and manage the guilt you get on both sides. Spent a lot of time listening to different people who've now, you know, having found podcasts and things, you know, there's so much more information out there about how people are navigating this. And I think there's so much better support now for women in the workplace. Not that I'm saying that my company, you know, were bad about it, but, you know, there wasn't really anybody in a similar situation to me when I started going through this. And, you know, and I travel for work, and I've always traveled for work, and I'm really fortunate that I have a very supportive partner who's always supported me in my career ambitions, and I have kids now who, because I traveled a lot for work when they were small, were quite independent early on, and have, you know, Juliet could do her own hair by the time she was 5 years old. She hated it when I was away for work and her dad did it, you know, but at the same time, just, you know, managing and finding the right path for me and the right balance between working and parenting. And the fact that there is no easy answer.
It's very challenging, isn't it? And it's very hard to prioritize yourself, because suddenly you are just not a priority anymore, but you've got to find your way, like you said. But then, Zoe, you've done an amazing job on the path that you've taken and what you've done. You've always been an incredibly solid, innovative performer. And you clearly, you know what you're doing. And the reason that you've actually remained at ProQuest through many organizational shifts and changes is because you're very adaptive to different environments. And also you really see where you need to be going and what you need to be doing. So, credit to you for that. And I, as a late mum, as the term is coined when you have children later on in life, as a geriatric mother, what you say really resonates with me now, because my daughter's 3, so it's just like,
and it was really nice for you to say that. I don't think I always felt like I knew what I was doing. Fake it till you make it.
You faked it really well then.
I didn't always feel 100% confident in what I was doing, and there were challenging days when you're going to work and you're dropping your child at nursery and they're screaming their head off. Like, now I ask my kids about that and they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. I love nursery.
They don't remember.
Like, it's so fascinating. Like, I remember the torture of leaving them when they're really young, and I remember, and I still have missed some of their small milestones. First sports day, missed when Juliet had her leavers assembly before going to secondary school, and and those things I'll always feel slightly guilty about, but like, my kids don't feel bad about it, and they don't know anything different. And so I feel really quite, reassured by the fact that it's not bothered them as much as I tortured myself when they were small, that it was going to bother them.
It's life, isn't it, Zoe, though? I mean, we can't be expected to be there for everything. And when they're older, you won't want them to feel like that when they have children, or if they have children. It's okay,
Yeah. Exactly. And it took me a long time and a lot of work, and and seeing a couple of therapists to help me come to terms with that, and not feel guilty about the fact that I really was passionate about my job and the people I work with. And and that's another thing when it comes back to helping people, is I now work with people who on my team who've got young children, and I think it really helps me to I can really empathize with the situations that they find themselves in, and hope that that I can reassure them in a way that won't make them feel this way that I felt sometimes when I was dealing with those situations. And, it's a challenge that keeps evolving, because
absolutely
now they're older. Like, you might think they need you less, but in some ways they need you more than when they were tiny, and they're going to remember these years a lot more clearly.
I think one of the most poignant things that my business mentor, Nathan Perugia, has said to me is, it's not about work-life balance. It's actually about quality. So you could spend a morning with your kids and be doing stuff and they're around, but actually, rather than spending 4 hours doing that and being distracted by work emails or whatever, actually, if you spent an hour and you sat down as a family and you did something, you played Exploding Kitten card game, something like that, that hour of valuable time, of concentrated valuable time, will mean so much more to them than a whole morning or a whole day where you're kind of there but not there.
So, that work-life balance thing, it's rubbish. It's the same as this, you can't have it all. It's all rubbish, and it's just there to make women particularly feel bad. You're right, it's about the quality, not the quantity of the time that you spend with your kids. Well, I hope it is anyway, because I only have about an hour and a half a day to spend on homeschool, so it better be quality, not quantity.
Depends what their output is, and I hope that you're measuring their output, so that's fine.
Absolutely. Yes.
Oh, we're such marketeers, aren't we? So bearing in mind that you are a senior director now, what's your ultimate career goal?
So I've never had career goals, never. I've always just followed what seems really interesting to me, because it's curiosity that drives me, rather than career opportunities. I'm driven by, is this interesting? Can I get engaged in it? What can I learn? And so I am very happy with what I do now. Like I'm in a position where I can do the things that I really care about in terms of culture and supporting others and coaching and mentoring. I act as the site lead for Cambridge as well. So I have an opportunity to do things that outside of marketing that I really care about, like influencing company culture and the type of organization that I want to work for. So I really am in a comfortable, happy place where I'm still being stretched every day and learning new things, but also, getting to bring new things into marketing, because I think marketing is changing so fast now that it's like this kind of steam train running through, and you've got to keep catching up with it constantly. So there's, so my career goal is to stay on top of that basically. And just carry on having that opportunity to have some influence over helping people and culture.
Brilliant. So if you weren't doing your role now and money was absolutely no object, what would you be?
I think that I'd be more than one thing. I think I would probably be studying. I would love to be back. I don't want to do postgraduate anything, but I'd love to be doing more.
Academic, wouldn't you?
Well, no, I think I'd like to be doing more undergraduate degrees being a student. I don't particularly want to be an academic, but I would love to I'd love to study more history, social history. I'd like to study some aspects of business, some of the social psychology around business and advertising, those aspects. So I think I'd be doing that. I'd also, this is a bit off the wall, but I've always really, really had this thing for the humble British hedgehog. And
because yes, I remember from Facebook.
Yeah, so I foster. Yeah, so there's a local lady who runs a hedgehog rescue centre, and my family, we foster a hedgehog every winter that would be too small to hibernate. So I think I'd probably be running some kind of hedgehog sanctuary and hedgehog hospital, because you laugh, but hedgehogs are truly endangered species in the UK. There's less than 1 million left, and it is our lifestyles and the way we build housing developments and things that is just destroying their population, because they can't roam and meet other
love them. I absolutely love them. I wish I saw more of them, and I actually don't see any.
No, hardly any, unless they're being rescued. There's less than 1 million left in the country now, and their populations have declined from I think 20 years ago there were 10 million of them. So they're truly endangered. So I would be probably doing something mad. I'd be like a mad hedgehog lady.
Credit to you. I think I'd be right there with you. And actually, I do remember seeing that on Facebook. And so it's interesting you saying that it was a local woman to you. And we're obviously not in the same country. You're in England, I'm in Wales. But that makes me feel like I should get in contact, because I've got a big enough garden here. I should get in contact with see if there's a local charity, because I was really inspired when I saw you do that. And I just thought, just a lovely thing to do.
Well, that's the thing with the hedgehog rescue, is it is all people with either land or big garden sheds who are just independently, there's very little coordinating effort to save hedgehogs. It's a grassroots, people just rescuing them and becoming the person that people take the hedgehog they find out during the day to. So it's a big grassroots organisation, which gives me hope. And I would love to play a bigger role in it if I could.
Well, you never know. One day you might move to, a house with a bigger garden and actually have your own little sanctuary, even while you're working. Who knows?
Exactly. Yeah, there is that hope.
So now, which 3 inspiring professional books would you say are a must read for a marketeer, and why?
So I'm going to say, confess out loud, I am not a big reader of professional books.
The third interview that we've done, you're the third person to say that, so you're not alone.
There are a couple of books that I have really enjoyed. So I don't know if they I don't know if this first one properly classifies as a professional book, but there is a data journalist called David McCandless, and he has a website called Information is Beautiful, and he's also written a book, 2 books called Information is Beautiful. And when we talk about telling stories, increasingly these days as marketers, we have to tell stories with data.
Yeah.
And he has, and charts are really boring, can be very confusing, but he has cornered this whole area of the market around visualizing data concepts in ways that people can understand. So he has this famous graphic called the $1 billion-gram,
Right.
and it basically shows what $1 billion looks like in terms of how much governments spend on defense or versus education. We see these big numbers all the time. Governments talk about, we're giving $300 million or £300 million to education. That's a drop in the ocean compared to how much they spend on defense. But you have no way of relating these things together anyway. But he does these amazing, beautiful graphics. Again, I'll send you the link to his website because he's actually done some really good visualizations around COVID. But I've found, sometimes when I'm having to put together presentation decks, which I seem to spend an increasing amount of my time on for either customer, and I know, or leadership team, I quite often will go back to his books to look for ideas. Some of the stuff he does is really wacky and off the wall kind of data visualization, and there are much more sensible business books about how to do a great bar chart. But that telling story with data is so important, and being able to show someone something and not have to explain a chart to them is crucial. And so I go back to him a lot and flick through his books when I'm feeling like I'm struggling for an idea for something I've got to present. So I definitely recommend that. Not specifically a marketing book, but when I got my latest role about 4 years ago, my boss gave me a book called The First 90 Days, and I have to remind myself who it's by Michael Watkins, and it's a really good book for someone taking up a new kind of role in a leadership position. It just walks you through a step-by-step process for the first 90 days in a new role, because that first 90 days, as we all know, is so crucial to set you up for success longer term. And, there are so many pitfalls that you can make and so many things you can do in that first 90 days that you just you don't know at the time. So I used that book quite a lot when I was kind of walking through how to do this new role. So those would be 2 that I would recommend. I'm much more a fan of reading articles, short articles in or Wired or HBR or whatever, or the EIU. I much prefer reading articles rather than whole books.
We're time poor, aren't we?
And biographies and things.
Yeah, we're very time poor now, aren't we? So we need stuff that's easily digestible. And actually reading books is quite hard. I've been listening to, I read a book recently, Who Moved My Cheese, I think it is. Okay. And that's a really interesting book about change management. I'm not going to go and explain it, but it's...
you'll have to send me it if you think it's...
I do. It's very short as well. I listened to it on Audible.
Okay.
So it's super short, and it's literally as a book. It's like that. So it's
okay. I like business books like that.
When you look at it Audible, it says 1.5 hours. You're like, that'll do me.
That's one run for you, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. My marathon training, definitely. Yeah. So what's your most favourite book, podcast, blog, whatever, and why? There's a dog jumping off the sofa.
That's fine. Can I have 3 podcasts?
Can have as many as you like.
Okay, so first podcast is one that's definitely work related and is one of those, again, alternatives to reading professional business books.
Yeah.
And it's a great podcast called How to Be Awesome at Your Job. And it's been going for ages. It's the guy who does the podcast is called Pete. I'm going to say his surname wrong. I think it's Pete Makidis. It doesn't look like that. It looks like Pete Makato but he says Makidis. And he just interviews people who've written professional business books about marketing or about leadership or all sorts of different topics. And that interview basically saves you reading the book. You could just and then he produces every week a little blog post, which is called the Gold Nugget. And it basically is the 1-page view of the key takeaways from that interview. So you don't even need to listen to the podcast. Yeah. But there are such a library of whatever business situation you're stuck in. You can go to his website and you'll find multiple really amazing speakers. And he does these great podcast interviews. So I really recommend that. I also really like, and this is more of a personal thing, but actually it does cross over with work-life balance, is a podcast called Postcards from the Midlife. And it's by Lorraine Candy and Trish Halpin. And they're both former magazine editors, but they talk about, it's really relatable to me. It's professional women who've had amazing careers. Well, not amazing career, but professional women who now have teenagers, now find themselves at a pivotal moment, as you're kind of heading into your 50s, pivotal moment in your life around change. They're extremely funny, but and they're sometimes quite rude, but they're also, it's really, really there are some real gems of information, and they get great speakers on it, and it's all about managing that midlife transition that many women go through. And then the last one that I've always really enjoyed is the Feel Better, Live More podcast by Dr. Rangan Chatterjee. He's a doctor, but also real lifestyle medicine person. And he too gets amazing people every week from different walks of life, in health, fitness, nutrition, mental health areas. Around this whole concept of if you feel better, you live more. So love those podcasts.
Fantastic. You've given us some really great recommendations there, and I'm sure that people will have some really good fun listening to those. They sound really, really good. So if you could travel back in a time machine, one day they'll probably exist. What would you tell your early career self?
I think I'd tell my early career self to stop stressing out over my failures. There's an acronym now they teach in school, and I wish they'd taught it to us. You might hear this when Poppy gets a bit older. FAIL. Right. First attempt in learning. That's what they say. A fail is a first attempt in learning, and you have to fail before you can succeed. Yeah. And you will learn more from your failures than from your successes. And I wish I had known that when I was much younger and didn't sweat that stuff quite so much when things didn't work out as I planned. The only person judging me was me. Yeah. And so we have a real culture in our marketing organization from my boss down, that testing and failing is completely welcome. And we want to review and discuss failures in meetings as much as we want to discuss successes. And it's really about learning from those experiences. And I don't think I was in companies that had that culture back in the early days, but that culture really has transformed the way, I know my team think about taking risks and pushing things, because they know that they're not going to get into trouble if something doesn't work. They know that we're going to learn from it, and we're going to move on, and we're going to try something different. And so I wish I'd known that, and I wish I could tell myself, chill, it's okay.
Absolutely. I think the worst thing is if you make a mistake and you keep making the same mistake and you don't change, you don't adapt, and you don't be agile. And some marketers will say to me, I've always done this, because I'll ask the question and I'll say, the marketing that you've just done, if it's a specific campaign or something, I'll say, are you proud of that? And they'll go, no, not really. But I've done it because I've always done it, and I don't really have time not to do it. And then it's about changing a mindset and saying, actually, change what you're doing, test it. If it's not working, put it back to what you were doing before. It's absolutely fine. And like you said, it's about learning from your mistakes. I find it sad in, let's say, in a research community where scientists are are discouraged from publishing negative results.
Yeah.
Because if they do that, how's the community, that research community, supposed to move forward if they all keep making the same mistakes? So, yeah, absolutely.
Negative results. And I think finally negative results are being recognised as important. I mean, there's certainly, you know, everything that we do as a team, we evaluate afterwards. What went well? What didn't work? Okay, this didn't work. What are you going to try next?
Exactly.
Like, that is the conversations that, you know, the managers and team members have with everything that we do. It's, you know, there's a real culture of test, put something out in market, reset, test, reset. Like, nothing comes out. Like, you know, I'd rather have something imperfect go out into market as a test than people spend ages planning something, making it fully baked, having a huge holistic plan and everything they're going to roll out. Like, because, you know, if the first thing fails, then everything else fails. So, you know, that test and iterate is just so important in marketing these days, to find the right spot and find the channel or the message or whatever that someone's going to do what you want them to do. Like the call to actions, they're so important these days. And so, you know, we're not afraid as a team to do that.
That's fantastic.
It has to be embedded in the culture.
Oh, absolutely. And it's really, really great to hear that you've got such an agile mindset there and that your team is doing that. That's very important. So what piece of advice, or what is the best piece of advice that you have ever been given?
The best piece of advice that I've ever been given. Wow. I've had so much advice over the years on so many topics. One of the things that I talk a lot with people that I'm mentoring or coaching with is about comfort zones. And one of the things that sticks with me is that a comfort zone is a fine place, but nothing grows there. Like, like, you know, quite often people are afraid of making change, of taking the next step, of putting themselves out there, you know, because they exist in a comfort zone, and they feel safe there and they feel supported and they like their role and they like their teammates, and, you know, they don't want to put themselves forward for a project or something. But, you know, the best piece of advice I was ever given, and I think it's why I've been able to pivot so much and change at ProQuest, is to continually push myself out of my comfort zone just a little bit. And this idea that the more you take those tiny steps out of your comfort zone just keeps growing bigger and bigger. And, you know, and then your experiences will be broader, you'll take more opportunities to learn. Every tiny step out of a comfort zone will bring you more confidence to do the next thing and the next thing. And I think that, you know, that has been really helpful advice for me, especially working in marketing, where this environment is so like, no, if I went back to the 1990s when I first started out here, like, it's unrecognizable.
Completely.
Like, even my CIM qualifications were all based around sending out direct mail post and like brochures and catalogue design and working with printers. Like, it's transformed just in the, you know, the 20 years that I've been in this industry.
Well, I hope the CIM's transformed with our changing times, because we did it years ago.
So my team who do CIM now, I'm like, this is so much cooler. Like, you know, they're all doing digital engagement strategies, and it has totally changed. But, you know, you've got to keep pushing yourself out of your comfort zone in marketing, because it is moving so fast. I think that
phrase that you said, though, I mean, that really is a very strong phrase, that nothing grows in the comfort zone. I mean, and that makes me think, you're right. It's very, very strong.
And it's just a short phrase, but it just I think it unlocks something in people.
It does.
You kind of draw that circle and say, look, this is your comfort zone. Like, what would it take for you to make one small step out of it? What would be the step that you would first take?
Absolutely. And some people are very happy to stay in their comfort zone, because when it comes to work, because actually they're moving out of their comfort zone in their personal life, and they're doing the things that they want to do, but work is there as a stable thing that they do, that they go in and do every day.
Absolutely.
So it can be applicable to any part of your life. So what is your number one tip for anyone working in marketing right now?
Stay on top of the technology. So, never before has marketing been so much of a combination of science and creativity. Yeah. And you can't be you can't be successful without being able to pair those two things and understand where marketing is going and understand where marketing as a profession is going, but also the tools available to you to be successful. So I really advise people to really think about marketing as a science. You can be telling the most amazing stories, but if you're not reaching the right audience through the right channels and understanding what it means when you get that feedback, you're just not going to be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's brilliant advice. And you've also mentioned a number of different resources as well that will be in the description for this podcast and in the blog post that we can point people to also to help them to keep themselves abreast of what's happening and point them to the right resources.
Yeah.
So what do you miss most since we have had the COVID-19 pandemic?
Oh gosh, I think it's the same as many other people. First of all, I miss family.
Yeah.
Secondly, I miss friends.
Yeah.
Thirdly, I really miss theatre and live performance. Three things that were really important in my life before COVID. And not even like doing anything fancy with friends. I'd just like to have a friend round and have a cup of tea.
Just want to touch a friend, don't you? You just want to be like, can I touch you? Can I hug you?
Yeah, just like invite someone in for a cup of tea.
They can come inside the house.
Yeah, just to sit down and just have a chat over a cup of coffee. I really miss that. I miss the office to some extent as well. I miss I've been sat in this room for a year. And I miss that socialization, but I think we've managed to find ways to compensate really well for that. But yeah, I do.
I mean, your dog's done great, hasn't she? She's kept you company, but she's
gonna hate it when I do go back to the office.
She's snoring at you. There's not much more output from her, is there? You can't have a conversation with her.
No, she, but it's a comforting presence.
And remind me what her name is?
Bella.
She is
Bella.
I'm surprised she didn't sit up then and go, what?
Oh no, she's out for the whole day, sleeping.
So is there anything that you want to ask me?
Yes. I want to ask you, I really want to ask you, I've always really admired how fantastic you are at building networks. And this is an important skill for today's marketers as well, building your network, building connection, finding and bringing people together and, finding solutions around that. What would be your top tips to marketers around how to build their network and the value of that, and how talk about marketing being a science and creative? It's very hard to be that rounded one person, so you really need networks of people who can come together and find solutions. So, and in your new company, building networks is really important if you're going to be entrepreneurial. So can you give people some information about how you do it and what top tips you have?
Yeah, sure. So alcohol helps. No.
Well, that was always the social lubricant before we had to sit here in our houses, and maybe it still is, but not
it is, except it's a bit different now because it's not we're seeing each other face to face. I mean, you could be drinking a massive glass of gin right now. Who knows? Yeah. So I think one thing that people might find a bit surprising about me is how much I struggle inside myself that people don't see to have confidence in certain situations. So walking into a room of people I don't know at a conference or whatever, inside I'm like, oh my God, 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 do it. So I literally just have to put my big girl pants on, and I literally will just go for someone after scanning the room to say, is there anyone I know here first that I'm going to go to first? And they're talking to people, and then I'll introduce myself. But I literally just have to get on and do it. And I find that when you're actually at physical events and you're in a lunch queue or you're sitting at a table with someone, I actually go and sit not on a table with my colleagues. I will go and sit on a table with people that I don't know. Or maybe there's a couple of people on there I do know, but definitely people I don't know. And I'll also get to know the person first. So it's, of course, you say, what's your name and where do you work as a bit of an introduction. But then I'll talk to them in a way that to get to know them as a person, as a human being, to find some common ground and common interest. Yeah. Also, something I learned about myself just very recently in the last week or two, which I had not considered for years, is that I'm dyslexic, and I had not thought about it. I hadn't brought it up in conversations, and I've been speaking to Katie Alexander from Digital Science, who's part of Publishing Enabled, and she's dyslexic. And I suddenly realized that some of my issues that I have, which could be just forgetting what I'm saying, twisting words around, not being able to think of a word when I'm talking, and I have my mechanisms, my way of dealing with things. That really affects me when I'm talking to people, especially in interviews. But I realize that actually it's my dyslexia, literally 2 weeks ago or last week. And that now there's a coping mechanisms that I can do around that kind of thing, which is super helpful. So that has always affected my confidence. But what you see on the outside is not what's going on the inside. And that's okay. Just keep that facade outside. And if you struggle inside, it's fine. What I would recommend is just be bold and be brave in what you're doing. And, everybody at the end of the day is human, and a lot of people will be going through the same things. And what I've also found really helpful when establishing my networks and my connections is if I can help someone with something, I will. So if I'm meeting someone, I've met someone and they say, I really want to find someone that does this and I can help them, I'll point them to the right person or the right place. And I know that people really value that, because you are people at the end of the day, and why should we not be kind and try and help each other and support each other? So I think and building relationships with your various stakeholders is very important. You and I both know this from working in environments with sales, and I think that there's a huge divide sometimes between sales and marketing teams, and they shouldn't be afraid of each other. It should be very much working together, and also respecting sales' challenges and what they need and what they can do, but also vice versa, sales respecting marketing's challenges, what they do, and how you can come together and work together. And I formed some incredible relationships with salespeople over the years who are still my friends now. And that was massively important for me. It was just taking the time to identify their pain points, as we do. I think people forget that they spend too much time targeting their external customer, and they're not dealing with the communication channels with their internal customer. There
is that ability to think, empathize with the other person's situation, which is so important in terms of avoiding conflict, or why isn't this person helping me? Put yourself in their shoes, and try and understand what's motivating them. Another good piece of advice I was given was assume positive intent. Everybody wants to be successful, and they're not doing things just to be spiteful. You just assume that people are just trying to get the best outcome for their customer, or for whatever is the result they're looking for. But I thought it was really interesting. You always seem so confident when I've seen you at conferences and things. You're so good at just going and talking to people. The fact that someone who appears like you, to be but you're also still feeling really nervous inside.
Oh God, yeah, and always.
I think we also sometimes forget that everybody else in the room is feeling that way as well, and sometimes they just want someone to come and talk to them so they feel less alone and self-conscious, and they'll be really grateful normally that you make the effort to outreach to them and to ask them a question when they're standing on their own at the lunch table.
I've targeted a few loners and then we've remained with each other for most of the time, when I've been thinking, I really want to now go over there, but I can't now. I want to stay with this person.
I can't leave you. You're both like attached to each other. Yeah.
And I do have great tactic for when I introduce people and I've forgotten their name. I usually tend to do like a sales tactic and have an awkward silence. And so I'll say, oh, Zoe. Oh no, how would I do it? I'd go, I'd love you to meet each other. This is Zoe Loveland. And then I just stare. And then they say their name and I'll go, yes, this is Monica or something.
Okay, brilliant. I need to use that one. I'm terrible with names and it's getting worse as I get older.
I know. Oh, so it's just the way it is. But, you know, I have to say it's been absolutely brilliant speaking to Zoe. It has just been such good fun, such a good laugh. And you have given some incredible advice and insight along the way. And I know that a lot of people are going to take some really great takeaways from this and also feel very inspired. And I hope that your team listen to this as well, because they'll recognize a lot of, what you say, because you are the line manager at the end of the day. But also, I bet that they'll take a lot from this as well.
Brilliant. Well, thank you. Do you know what? I love chatting to you. It reminded me of the old days with some of the conversations we used to have when we were sat in the office at ProQuest, just chatting
Random.
through the day about everything. So it was absolutely fantastic. And I think you're doing a great thing here by, doing this podcast. Hopefully, finding some people who will inspire some of the upcoming talent in the industry to go and take that extra step. I'm very happy if people want to find me on LinkedIn and ask me questions, or on my Twitter at Zoe2302. And very happy to help you, Lou, because I think it's great what you're doing.
Thank you.
So thank you very much. I've really enjoyed chatting to you this morning.
No problem. So thank you very much.